Good afternoon. I am Tony Dattino, the founder of the USA Memory Championship and the president of Dattino Consulting Group, doing my Friday 5 o'clock hour live with Tony. And as I usually do, I'm constantly reading. And by the way, I'm still in New York. I will be here till Tuesday and back to Orlando. So by Wednesday, you will see me with the palm trees in the back, or maybe a couple of gators while walking out of the pond on where I live. But I will be returning to Florida next week if all goes well. But for today, I was reading again, as I usually do. I've been some time problem in my shoulder, and so I've been spending time in doctor's offices. And on Friday, today, I'm reading AARP magazine bulletin. Right, I'm reading an AARP magazine bulletin for June. And in the bulletin, I was happy to see that older Americans, right, in this COVID world, right, if you're over 65, you're going to die more from COVID, you're going to have more obesity, comorbidity issues, you're going to be less happy. Well, here we go, 50 have kept mentally fit during COVID. And so what have seniors been doing? So we'll put it in over 50. I'll even say my senior group of 65 and above have done several things that tie into the elements of brain health, which I think are important. And for my Live with Tony audience, I don't want us to have to wait till we're in our 60s to figure these things out, but we're working on something called the 6 elements of brain health right now. And seniors seem to have figured these out. Maybe it's their wisdom, their experience, but let's go through what those were. The most important thing that they're saying in this article is that they have been much more active in terms of exercise. Now, exercising does not mean you have to go out and run, up and down the street, or you have to run into crowds of people and things, but it means you had to be active. Now, active could be taking a nighttime walk. It could be finding a park and wearing your mask and walking at a pace. I read recently 5 minutes of walking after dinner helps put the sugar glucose through your bloodstream and doesn't leave it hanging out there, making you more susceptible to diabetes. So exercise seems to be one of the core fundamentals that seniors have picked up. So 65% of people 50 to 80 say their mental health is excellent, and another 27% said their mental health is good. So that's 92% of seniors that are saying, you know what, I've come through COVID, living through it, in fairly good mental health. And as I've talked with seniors, we are also, we being I'm a senior, as you can figure out, one of the things we have figured out is how to use our life experiences and how to utilize the things that we've learned in our lives to be pragmatic and not go, what I call, in roller coaster rides. So as I socialize with my senior friends, we all seem to have taken the COVID thing and said, okay, how do we deal with COVID and remain active, and active in a way that was safe, because we understood the risks that we take and took or could have taken, and we preserved those risks, minimized those, and therefore mentally we're stronger for it. A number of seniors that I've talked with actually used it as the benefit of their diets, with their nutritional habits. If you step back and think about it, I was talking with a cardiologist, and he said this would have been the time where more people should have gotten a handle on their dietary habits and nutritional eatings and things, because now they could control. They weren't going out to eat in restaurants. They could cook at home, and so hopefully you had a good cook at home, or you had somebody who could read recipes and make good meals at home, or had a good restaurant that had takeout at the curb. But their nutritional habits now had more control over what you could eat. And what the cardiologist was saying is, unfortunately, too many of my patients who felt that they were stuck at home, obviously those that didn't feel exercise was part of their regimentation, felt stuck at home, did too much snacking and too much sitting there and grabbing something else to eat, when really they didn't need anything more to eat, but it was the psychology of it. So mentally, we went through the stress of it, and in many cases he said I had people that just put on too many pounds, like 20 to 30. And I'm like, hey, I saw a picture of somebody yesterday that put on like more than 30. And I'm like, ah. I have talked to you about my nutritional habits, and I actually have lost 20 pounds. So I finally got to my high school weight by being focused on what I was eating, flours and breads and sugars and fruits and vegetables, and about exercise. We talk about became more regimented in what our nutritional habits were. So when we talk about the elements of our nutritional habits, another one that came out of this article, this one next, okay, next part of this is sleep, our sleeping habits. People who slept 6 or few hours a night in their 50s, 60s, or 70s were more likely to develop dementia. Oh my goodness. You're more likely to develop dementia if you're only getting a shorter amount of sleep, and they use this as 6 or fewer are more likely to develop dementia. The increased risk persisted even when scientists accounted for physical and mental health problems and socioeconomic factors. The novelty of this study is that its long follow-up period allowed us to assess association of sleep during age 50 and dementia risk later in life. Came from the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research. The study suggests that persistent lack of sleep in midlife, so now you got to start thinking about this in your 50s. If any of you out there in your 50s, when you guys start thinking about strongly suggests that persistent lack of sleep in midlife might be a key driver of dementia. Tend to talking about that at age 50. My goodness gracious. At age 50, we're still going. Maybe the kids are off to college. Maybe your work has gotten you to your highest level in terms of promotions, and it's go, 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 go. Maybe you're off to ball games and soccer events and social activities, and you're not getting your sleep, and you wake up maybe not at the sound of the alarm, or you wake up at the sound of alarm, not your normal sleep cycles, and off you go. So researchers followed 8,000. So this study was 8,000 people for 25 years. At 50, those reporting less sleep faced a 22% increased risk of dementia, and at 60, it went to 37%. So what we do today has impacts of what happens to us 10 years from now. So when is it time to go? So we've now talked about exercise, we talk about nutrition, we talk about sleep. These are the factors that science has revealed to us over the last 20 years are crucial elements for mental health in our memories. And then I come across one last piece of this, and it talked about vitamin D levels. And are we maintaining our vitamin D levels? Now, vitamin D, they're finding, is one of the older, we're not getting a sufficient amount of vitamin D. And I always remember this, and I was very fortunate. I took a good thing out of an unfortunate experience when my dad, at age 62, unfortunately, Dad was a heavy smoker, and at an early age wound up with, and I say 62 is far too early for Dad to pass, wound up with lung cancer. But I always remember he was at Sloan Kettering in New York City, and he had Dr. Daniel Miller, who was just one of the leading edge oncologists on cancer, especially in lung. And Dr. Miller said to me one day, Anthony, if you want to preserve your long-term health of all kinds, mental and physical, and first, take vitamin D and make sure you continue to follow your vitamin D levels. All the research and studies I've been a part of at the Sloan Kettering